Welcome back to the party. I'm Luke Inman, filling in for the maestro, Sam Ekstrom. He's out in La La Land, probably auditioning for season 47 of Survivor. Good luck, buddy.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, advocating to ban the hip drop tackle, but only because it's ruined all of my parlays this year.
Hey, this is Arif Hassan with the Wide Left Substack, advocating that they only legalize the hip drop tackle, and specifically on Luke Braun.
All that, plus you'll want to stick around for our yearly holiday movie draft as well. It's all coming up next on the Minnesota Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts.
Welcome one, welcome all. We're back at it, back in the lab. Another episode of the Minnesota Football Party right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. We should probably get our other three guys in here. That might help. There they are, the three guys. You got a Reef and the two Lukes today. No Sammy Guns. He's out in La La Land right now as we speak. Maybe we'll get a classic airport video sent our way. We'll see. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Stop it. Stop it. From the plane? What are you flying? Delta? What is that? Delta One?
Looks like United to me.
An undisclosed airline.
We don't want people tracking Sam's flights. What is this, high school recruiting Twitter?
Look at he's got the Starbucks in hand. What'd that go for? $12?
Doing it right.
Starbucks.
Delta Sky Club.
All right, and how we doing on leg room? It looks like you got the window seat going. Is that your preference? Some people like aisle, some people like window. How we doing? Okay.
It's tight. It's tight. But you know what? We got the entertainment. We got the entertainment system. We got the free Delta internet. I could stay on the whole show. It's very unsettling to be talking on a podcast on an airplane. I'm just realizing that now, and I'm sweating.
I was going to say, you're at about a 3 out of 10 as far as the volume goes, and I could tell I would be uncomfy as well, a little stuffy for sure. Have you scrolled through your options when it comes to your movie viewing pleasure? Because we're going to be doing a holiday movie draft here coming up. You might have to miss out on that, but you got anything that comes to mind when you think about those options that you got?
I could do Barbie. I could do Gran Turismo.
Okay.
I could do My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. Which of those would you go with?
Greek Wedding 3. I'm really curious what happens next. They get married?
The grand conclusion of the trilogy.
Gretch finally gets you out of the office. You're clocked out. Got you on the plane. We're finally going to enjoy a little family vacay. There she is. What is she doing? A little Sudoku connections puzzle today? What's she doing?
She's elbowing me. She's tapping me on the knee, telling me to get the heck off.
Yeah, because you're embarrassing her. Yeah, I get it.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. Yes. I'll tell you what. Just to help her out, I'll give you 30 seconds. Jake Browning, Bengals this week, Saturday, noon Central Standard Time. Give us your 30 seconds quick snapshot. What's the major headline you're thinking about?
Jake Browning is going to fall apart. He's going to crumble. And the Vikings will have a 3-game streak of not allowing a touchdown. You heard it here first.
Wow, spicy meet the ball. Okay, I like that. Give Gretch our best wishes. You guys have a safe trip out there and have fun out there. When are we going to see you next?
Back on Monday. On Saturday, I'll call into the postcast from Spyglass Hill Golf Club.
All right, say goodbye to our guy, guys.
Goodbye to our guy.
Sam. Shoot him straight.
Get me out of here. This is terrible.
Get me out of here. Sam Ekstrom, ladies and gentlemen. Wouldn't be a show if Sam Ekstrom didn't chirp back in from the airport. It's usually the airport videos we get. Yeah, we actually upgraded it. We got the plane.
All right. It is
in a mildly unsettling way.
Yeah, it is extremely Sam Ekstrom to think of doing something bold and then begin to execute it and immediately regret it.
His voice started out very quiet and it only got quieter as it kept going.
You realize that you're talking on a podcast in an airplane.
I mean, that is degenerate behavior. I understand.
Regretted that. And you just know Gretch, his wife, was just sitting there. Sam, what are you doing? How long is this going to take? Sam. We're about to take off.
We're on vacation.
This is a vacation, Sam. We waited all year for this. So
the one place I thought you couldn't sneak in work was on the plane.
This was my safe spot. Aisle 14, seat B and C. And this is what you do to me. All right. Final odds on what that guy's going to watch. He's going to go with Barbie, isn't it?
He's going with Barbie. There's no way he's going to take my
Barbie.
suggestion.
What, I was joking. All right. I know he's a big Survivor fanatic, but like, what's your best educated guess? When you think of Sam Ekstrom, what reality TV show or what type of role would he star in if he were to go into the show business? Like, what type of typecast character would Sam Ekstrom be if he were to make it big out in Hollywood?
Boring answer. He's the host of the reality. He's Jeff Probst.
Yes,
right. Like
100%.
It just feels right
Jeff
to me.
Probst. Absolutely. Yeah. No.
What about like perfectly nice guy that the girl was dating before she leaves him for the lead?
Right, because the lead is like quirky and
right,
the new meaning,
and he's just he's too normal.
He gets stuck in the friend
zone.
Settle
down with him.
But it's not like an early 2000s movie where they have to make him evil and have him do awful stuff to justify.
Right. No, he's just didn't deserve this at all.
Yeah, yeah. What like? Was Jim Carrey's romantic rival in Liar Liar just like a normal dude? I'm trying to remember, or if he was he?
Oh, it's the guy from Saw. It's the guy who had to saw off his leg.
But that's just an actor. Like I can't.
Well, yeah, they're just They're just movies. Also, not real.
Also, I looked it up. It is Joey Fatone. Also, why did I say Backstreet? That's NSYNC. There's my late 90s credentials revoked.
Be careful with that. Yeah, be careful. This is a Vikings podcast, by the way. So coming up,
10 minutes in.
Vikes Bengals week.
We're going to discuss the upcoming Vikings game.
Yeah, you can't prove that it is.
Barbie coming out, releasing now, streaming on Amazon Prime. What do we got today? We're putting Nick Mullens and Jake Browning under the microscope, plus how Brian Flores has squeezed every drop of talent out of that Vikings defensive roster. We also got Ron Johnson coming up in what should be about 2 minutes now, not 15. He'll stop by for his weekly visit. And then stay till the end because you don't want to miss our yearly holiday movie draft, which you'll be able to vote on later today as well. I already know what Arif's going to pick with that 1-1. I can feel it in my bones. Die Hard.
Nope.
Die Hard. Before we jump into it, quick reminder, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, fellas, we kind of teased it with Sam. Let's start here. Vikes Bengals this Saturday, noon kickoff. Vikes enter the week one game above 500, beating the Raiders 3-0. First 3-0 game. Maybe you guys already talked about this on Monday's show. I missed it, but first 3-0 game by the Vikings since 1971 versus Green Bay. Freddie Cox, the kicker, which apparently my dad was at that game. He told me all about it. It was at the old Met, which it was just kind of cool to hear about that. But I digress. This Saturday, we get the battle of the backups. Nick Mullens taking on former Viking UDFA Jake Browning, who started his career here in Minnesota many moons ago. This dude's been hot, guys. 629 yards, a 110 rating or better in his last back-to-back games. How about this? I thought this was pretty wild. 0 sacks taken versus the Colts Sunday in 25 dropbacks versus a pass rush that came into the week top 3 in the league in sacks. And he's been mixing it up too. Versus the Jags, if you remember, heavy dose of Jamar Chase. This week, he spread it out, 9 different pass catchers. Not one Bengal pass catcher had more than 4 targets. So this dude does not look like the rookie we saw back in the 2019 Viking training camp right now. Arif, let's start with you. I guess just your snapshot of Jake Browning from what you've seen, what you expect to see this week from a game plan standpoint with Brian Flores, and I guess how to slow this guy down in their offense.
Yeah, it's another situation where my perception of the player, just based off of watching, I haven't done like a serious film analysis or anything like that, but just based off of like, quick glances at the game and watching what he's done versus the statistical output that he's provided, like in terms of like EPA per play, there's a huge gulf, right? He's second in the NFL right now. You have to mess with the minimum passes, but he's second in the NFL right now behind Brock Purdy in EPA per play, right? That is remarkably productive. Right. It's not as if the Bengals have the world's best offensive line. Obviously, they've got a pretty good supporting cast. I think we tend to overrate the Bengals supporting cast when we talk about Joe Burrow, but I think it's very important here to have a discussion about, what players like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins bring to bear. So there's all that. But, at some point, I do just kind of have to drop it and just accept that, like, hey, that statistical output is probably real. He is playing to type. I don't think that anything we've seen suggests that the scouting report on the way that he plays is particularly different. I think that he tends to, get rid of the ball quickly. I think that he tends to, kind of dish it out to, whoever's open by the progression. I don't think he tends to take a ton of chances. Again, I haven't checked things like aggressiveness index. I haven't checked things like ADOT, but based off of, what I've seen, very much it seems like he's a guy that is willing to let the supporting cast do a good chunk of the work. So that's what I see. I think a lot of that just kind of goes out the window against Brian Flores' defense. There's a lot of quarterbacks that throw deep that suddenly magically against the Vikings don't. So, I think that it's going to be kind of difficult to turn a scouting report into a preview of what's going to happen because of the nature of the Vikings defense.
Yeah, that EPA ranked right behind Brock Purdy is absolutely wild. Luke, same question. Thoughts on Browning? Any big notes sticking out or anything come to mind, I guess, when you think about the Bengals this week? What's the 2 or 3 things on the forefront of your mind?
Yeah, so I was talking to Jake Lisco on the crossover episode he does Locked On Bengals, and they've been kind of hiding Browning with a ton of rollouts and moving pockets and stuff you typically see with backups or like young quarterbacks. And in particular, in the last 2 games, which have been against the Jaguars and the Colts, it's like really good against those like Gus Bradley defenses. And this defense obviously is a way different challenge. So what I'm really curious about is, does Zach Taylor say, yeah, but like this has been working, so let's keep doing this rollout thing? Or is he going to try to dial up something different to see if he can't be the first person to crack this nut that is the Brian Flores defense and how hot that the defense is right now? I don't know if you do, though. Like if you're sitting there with a backup quarterback and you're just trying to survive, push into the playoffs where there's this huge glut of 7-6 teams in the AFC, and you just are going to kind of go, you know what, let's just do what our quarterback can do. And instead of trying to, push some crazy risky thing against this blitz heavy defense. Yeah, let's just like do this with rollouts. So we'll see just how Flores prefers to attack a rollout heavy approach, which you don't see a lot of in the league anymore, because it's not like 2019 anymore, but hey, you do what you got to do in Cincinnati, right? So I get it, but we'll see what Flores wants to do. If Zach Taylor does kind of roll in with the same game plan he's had the last couple of weeks, I'll be curious to see if that just means like more guys on the same side as the running back, which is typically where the rollout will go. Or if, well, it's an under center actually. So just on the backside, right? Like more guys on the edge that can like chase after the quarterback. Or if they come up with something a little bit more interesting to try to force Jake Browning to take chances he otherwise wouldn't want to take, and maybe force him to throw into coverages and make mistakes. I kind of get it. Like the Bengals with Burrow were really good at beating the blitz by getting the ball out quickly. So I would imagine that like the Colts and Jags saying, yeah, there's a backup, but like this team's really good at executing quick stuff. Let's not play into it with the blitz. But they're normal people with sane defensive coordinators.
Right.
Our guy is in a totally different reality and is unhinged, and he's just going to go into that.
Unhinged, psychotic. I do want to touch on that here first, but there was a CBS article that came out a week before the season started that ranked all 32 backups in the league. Take a stab at where you think Jake Browning ranks.
We had to be like 30th.
Yeah, like 28th.
Dead last.
CFL.
32.
Wow.
Here's the snapshot. The former undrafted prospect has spent 4 years on and off practice squads, beating out journeyman Trevor Siemian to back up Joe Burrow, but he's thrown just a single NFL pass. His most notable attribute is his knowledge of Zach Taylor's offense. It must have been updated at some point around the deadline too, because Josh Dobbs is on here for the Vikes. He's ranked 12th. Other interesting ones.
On the Vikes. Interesting.
Tyson Bagent ranked 21. Easton Stick 22. We'll see him tonight on Thursday.
Okay, yeah,
Night
that's
Football.
definitely been updated.
Bailey Zappi 23. Mitch Trubisky 10th. That guy's 10th.
Well, no, it's not completely updated. Bailey Zappi's not a backup.
That's true. No, you're right. That's
Wait,
true.
are they starting him on purpose now?
Yeah.
My God, it's dark.
Here's your 1, 2, 3. Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, Sam Darnold. That's your 1, 2, 3. What's up with all the backups this year, man? Weird year for the Vikings? No, weird year for the NFL, man. How many backups have we seen to this point this year start at least one game? It's got to be close to a record, I would think.
I think I saw somewhere that like 50 quarterbacks have started a game. Just total.
So 2 weeks ago, the number was 53.
53, yeah.
Wow.
So the most quarterbacks to have ever started a game in the NFL was last year with 69. Nice. So we haven't reached that yet, but we're on pace to beat it now. Now that Joe Flacco's like started for the Browns and Easton Stick started for the Chargers, we have increased. I don't know that on pace stats make sense here, but we're going with it. But because like that's not really how it works. But yeah, we've had a lot of starters for the number of weeks that we've had. The fact that we have 18 weeks instead of 17 increases it. That's why the numbers have been pretty high the last couple of years. But we're on pace, basically. Again, I don't know if that makes sense, but we're on pace to have the most quarterbacks start in the NFL. We haven't hit it yet, so we'll see.
Okay.
Maybe
couple more weeks to play here.
Goes down or something. Yeah, I don't know. That I shouldn't have named a specific person. That seems mean-spirited.
Yeah, you did. You did though. All right, that's done. that's in the archives.
I don't want him to get hurt. I was just like, well, who's a team that's already at the backup? Yeah,
right. Speaking of unhinged, psychotic. Let's talk about Brian Flores for a quick minute or two. I know we do this every week. We talk about this dude, but I mean, he's legitimately the hottest coordinator in the league right now.
Yeah,
after pitching that shutout in Vegas last week. Did you guys see the Tom Pelissero tweet when he interviewed Harrison Phillips? They were talking about the Walter Payton Man of the Year stuff, but he asked him what makes this whole thing so special, so unique. And what really stuck out to me in that answer, we've talked about, again, how psychotic, how crazy the scheme is, talked about that Kevin Seifert article and breakdown and all that, which was phenomenal. But he mentioned how when an offense gets up to the line of scrimmage and they go into a check, okay, well, Brian Flores and this defense, they got their check off that check. And then when the offense makes a second check off that check, that's when most defenses are kind of stuck. They're idle, can't really do anything. Too hard to communicate to a second or third check with 5 seconds left on the play clock. But that's when they go into that next check, sometimes even a third check at the line of scrimmage. And it feels like that's got to be one of the bigger difference makers and something that I think most coordinators haven't been able to successfully implement like Flores has this year. Luke, I know you tweeted out a few days ago, eventually someone's going to figure this whole thing out. Could be this week, could be next week, could be next year. We don't know. But in the meantime, what he's doing right now, it's an absolute thing of beauty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's... And when I say that he'll get figured out, it's not that the whole thing will fall apart and become unviable in the NFL. I mean, cover 3 got figured out. There's still lots of cover 3. But then there's beaters, right? There's cover 3 beaters. There's quarters beaters. Like eventually there will be things that beat the Bengal look, where if you line up with 8 on the line, teams will figure out that if you do this or that, and then check into this if they go into coverage, and they'll figure out a way to move the ball against this stuff. They're not just going to roll over and die all the time. And there's a lot of really good offensive minds remaining on the Vikings schedule, not to mention just around in the league that'll play the Vikings next year. So somebody will crack the code, but until they do, we're going to be going up against, Jake Browning and then Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and if they can't figure out a way to make things easy for those guys, it's just going to keep being a whole bunch of punts.
Let's bring in the legend, Ron Johnson, Gophers Hall of Famer. You can check him out every Tuesday up on the Ron Johnson Show right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota channel. Ron, first off, we're just talking about Brian Flores, how crazy this whole scheme and everything that he's doing is. You played in the league. Have you ever seen anything like this, and just what makes it so special and unique?
Honestly, this is the thing about defense. I don't know if there's anything unique or special about it. I honestly think he's just doing like non-tendency type stuff. So a lot of people have tendencies in certain packages and certain things. I think when you look at the number of defensive of coaches on that staff, the number of analysts, the number of ways, because Josh Metellus brought it up. He said when they played the Falcons, there was a coach for the Falcons on the sideline trying to yell out every potential play that was coming or potential blitz, and every single time he was wrong. And I think that's the thing. If Brian Flores he's just figuring out, instead of going with the normal tendency to drop 7 here, everybody says I should drop 6 and rush 5 here. He's just not doing it. He's just saying, I got enough athletes, I got enough guys that Josh Metellus, I'm going to do something for you. And so offensively, I remember when the Ravens, we first started doing a lot of explode, shrink, motion stuff where we would start off in tight, we'd explode to regular twins right, or we'd start off in twins right and we'd shrink to bunch left, and then we motion. Well, what that did was that made practice fun. That made game planning fun. Now, even though with the Ravens we were going to run the ball 70 times, it still was fun to mess around with it. But then when I got to the Colts, I saw the true reason of why an offense does it, to see Peyton Manning do it, to shrink, to explode, to motion, to shift. A lot of times not even having a play drawn up, just knowing that if he explodes to empty, he's going to get some type of cover 2 or cover 4 look, because that's the best way to kind of combat empty. When you have 5 receivers, you can't just go man unless you just feel like you got dogs. You're going to go quarters or 2. And so from empty, Peyton would then find the best cover 2 beater, which was usually, some type of 4 vertical look with the inside bender or some to attack that Tampa 2 linebacker and put him in a bind. And so when you look at where Peyton Manning is in that aspect, if you take Brian Flores into that thought process, Brian Flores is like, you know what? Offenses are going to check. So why am I going to play this game and check with them? Here's what we're going to do. As long as we're lined up and we feel like we can cover these guys, we're still going to blitz the guys we were going to blitz in the first place, but we're going to make sure that you understand this is the one chance you can't blitz. So there might be some type of, if they go empty, hey, Harrison, you can't blitz, man. You got to get out of it. If they go, trips left with a running back to the left, so now you're technically in a 4-by-1, he could say, hey, Josh, you can't blitz. You got to cover that running back or that tight end. So I guarantee there's little things like that. But other than that, I think Brian Flores just lining up and knowing I can come from so many different ways. You have no way to understand where I'm coming from, how I'm coming, and why I'm doing it. I think that's what's most intriguing about it. But at the end of the day, without a guy like Josh Metellus and Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum, those 3, I don't think you can pull this off, because when you watch the Raiders, even though the Vikings did nothing against them, when you watch the Raiders in games and teams were putting them in binds, their safeties had no idea sometimes what they were doing. And I think that's the big difference in the Vikings is those safeties.
Ron, real quick, let me switch to the other side of the ball. Did you see Kurt Warner's tweets about how he thought sitting Dobbs was not warranted, considering all the drops and the little help that he got? What's your take on that quarterback change mid-game like that? Obviously, they won the game. They finally scored some points, so it's kind of tough to argue, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's the thing. Kurt Warner is a HOF, so I'm never going to question somebody's Hall of Fame status when they know exactly what they're looking at on film. And so to his point, if Jalen Naylor makes that catch, if KJ Osborne makes that catch, if TJ Hockenson, yes, it was hard, his one arm was being grabbed, if he makes the circus catch that we've seen and knows he can make, if Dobbs maybe doesn't lead Justin Jefferson in so late and he throws a little bit sooner and a little bit lower so we're not taking a hit to the ribs, I think we're having a different conversation. That's one errant throw there. Other than that, some of the footwork stuff, his feet, as Dan Orlovsky would say, his feet didn't marry his shoulders. And what that meant was on that pump to the right where he was trying to fake like it was going to be some type of pump right and he was supposed to throw it deep, his feet took him too far to the right. So when he pumped, his body went with him to the right, and now he was in the lap of the tackle. Versus if he had just dropped straight back, pumped, and stayed straight back, probably has a little bit more time. He's probably able to deliver a ball. So there's probably some footwork stuff and some mental stuff that Kevin O'Connell wasn't happy with. And that's the one thing Kurt Warner doesn't know is like what Kevin O'Connell was looking for. But, yeah, if they make those catches, we might be having a different conversation here. So I think it's 2 sides to the coin. There's probably some things Kevin O'Connell saw on tape, eye-wise, footwork-wise, that he didn't like. And then there was probably some things that he's like, well, I know Nick Mullens is not going to get happy feet here because he's not a runner. So let's just go into this game with this, because when you look at the Bengals, honestly, Jake Browning is the last 4 weeks has been playing similar to Josh Dobbs. Like their stats, I think before this week, their stats, or maybe it is right now, their stats were pretty close to the same. The big thing about Jake Browning is Zach Taylor is giving him no other options but who to throw to, and his who to throw to guys are absolute dogs. And so, I'm doing a breakdown on Sunday or Saturday about this, but Jake Browning does not look guys off. He stares down the read he's supposed to go to, and he's praying that guy finds a way to get open. And so I think that's what Kevin O'Connell's looking for, a guy that's going to sit in there, stick with what it's called, stick with the throw, and not be worried about like, oh, I know I can run, so I might be able to run here, where Nick Mullens isn't thinking that. He's like, what's the play? All right, let me sit in here. So you might see more sacks, but you're not going to see some of the errant, footwork issues that I think Kevin O'Connell was frustrated with.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Can't wait to check out that breakdown on Saturday before the game. Luke Brown, what do you got for Ron?
I was thinking about this, talking a lot about Ivan Pace this week, defensive player of the week and all that, and just how good of a tackler he is. Like, man, he's just like the best tackler on the field. Wait, actually, he might not be the best tackler on the field because there's Bynum and there's Daniel Hunter. Who's the best tackler on the Vikings?
Ooh.
Isn't it hard?
That's a tough
Bynum's
one.
gotten so much better at tackling this year.
I'd say, I'd probably say, so with defensive linemen, it's tough to say good tacklers with them because they don't have to tackle in space as much. I usually leave that to a backer or a safety because of the depth in which he has to come down. I'd probably go with Cam Bynum right now. He doesn't really miss a lot of tackles. He's coming from a lot more depth. But Ivan Pace is solid. Like when you look at this kid, he reminds me of a wrestler. His leverage, he's never like leaning with his helmet. He leads with his shoulder every time. So you can tell Luke Fickell. I never want to give Wisconsin praise, but Luke Fickell when he was at Cincinnati, you could tell he had those guys coached up well because a lot of Cincinnati guys, when you look at Sauce Gardner, Ivan Pace Jr., Kobe Bryant, like they've all made it to the league and they're all like solid defenders. And so you can tell there was some fundamental stuff going on in Cincinnati that a lot of people didn't really know. Because again, Sauce Gardner didn't jump out to us until his last year, but he had been there doing that because Kobe Bryant was before him. So I think that's more of the coaching in Cincinnati. I guess I'll say, shout out to Jason and Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The improvement of Caleb Evans and Cam Bynum's tackling from last year to this year has just been absolutely phenomenal. Last quick one, 10-second answer, Ron. Who would you want back more for this defense down the stretch, Jordan Hicks or Marcus Davenport? What do you think?
Give me Eric Kendricks for 200.
Oh, okay.
No, honestly, both. But the way they're getting after the quarterback now, I would like to see Hicks because I think Ivan Pace can be unleashed if Hicks comes back in and takes the green dot from him, and now he can maybe move around a little bit more within this defense. But I want both. But for sure, Hicks is a difference maker when you think about his leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. No wrong answer there. Love it. Ron Johnson on Twitter, @3RonJohnson. Check him out every week on the Ron Johnson Show, part of the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. And if you haven't already, by the way, go check out Ron's brand new interview with Cris Carter. Yeah, that Cris Carter, Vikings legend. That's up on Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a beat. Ron, pleasure as always. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Appreciate it. And I will say Cris Carter dropped some gems on. He kind of was like trying to hold the crown. He's like, hey, don't give it to Justin Jefferson just yet. This dude is not – I've never missed more than 4 games in my career. He's like, Justin Jefferson already missed 5. So I was like, oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Cris.
Yeah. Cris dropped some knowledge on that one. That was phenomenal. Check that one out. All right, Ron Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. All right, coming up, I want to ask you guys about Nick Mullens starting this week. Where does Kirk Cousins fit in the long-term plans? But first, a quick word from FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when you win just a $5 money line wager with FanDuel. That's $150 in bonus bets when you throw down just any $5 money line wager. This week, the San Francisco 49ers are 12.5-point favorites versus the Cardinals. Put $5 on the Niners to win straight up, and you could win $150 in bonus bets back. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on all the action. The app, it's so easy to use, and they got everything you need. Money lines, parlays, prop bets, you name it, they got it. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet on the entire NFL season, and it's by far the easiest and simplest betting app to use. Go check it out for yourself. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon today. America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I think I've said this before, but in the last 8 years, how many defensive linemen do you think the Vikings have drafted in the first 3 rounds? Any guess? You want to take a stab? 8 years in the first 3 rounds. 1, 2, and 3. How many defensive linemen do you think they've drafted?
I want to say that's 0, unless that goes back.
Daniil Hunter was a 3rd-round pick.
I thought it was
It goes back to Daniil. Patrick Jones won.
Oh, Patrick Jones.
Patrick Jones. The Vikings have drafted one in the 8 years, have drafted one defensive lineman. I think that's absolutely wild. I asked Ron, I just want 10 seconds from you guys on this one. Who do you guys want back more down the stretch for this defense? Jordan Hicks or Marcus Davenport, and why?
I'm going to go with Davenport. I feel like just having a guy that can win more one-on-ones can help the Vikings get a little bit more pressure, because they will, when they're not manufacturing it by like exotic pressures and stuff, it's been pretty hard for them to get to the quarterback. And Davenport was doing a great job, plus a great job of like setting the edge and being where he was supposed to be in the run game. A lot of the worst run plays that we've suffered in the last 4 or 5 weeks, you can kind of see DJ Wonnum at the point of attack there. In particular, what comes to mind is against the Falcons. Remember that drive where they ran like 8 times in a row and they scored a touchdown? Boy, did they just like figure out where 98 was and check into a run right there and just smoked him. So yeah, I would take Davenport, I guess. And plus Ivan Pace is playing just so well, right? That gosh, like, I don't know if I put Jordan Hicks back in.
He's killing it. Mess with it.
That's a little much. That's a little much.
All right, fair enough.
But this one's tough for me, right? Because the drop off from Davenport to Wonnum, as like a Wonnum hater, is pretty huge, right? Like I think that's like there's a pretty big talent differential there versus the Hicks to Pace one. But I do think that Ron hit on a correct point there, which is that Ivan Pace is like extremely good at the stuff that he's good at, and he's like whatever at the stuff that he's not good at, right? Jordan Hicks is like very good at the stuff that Ivan Pace is not good at, right? He has been great in coverage. He's been great at taking on some of the bigger guards when they have to take on the block and try to squeeze. And I think that like you enable more stuff on the back end when you've got Hicks, right? I think that the ability to manufacture pressure allows you to cover up some of that. Obviously, kind of that concern about the run game that Luke brought up, that's like very real. That Falcon stuff was like insanely frustrating. But I think that you can also cover that up when you've got, players like Jordan Hicks. So I just think that Hicks really maximizes pace if Hicks is back healthy, whereas Davenport adds something that the Vikings are in a way manufacturing anyway. Like I know that there's like, drawbacks to manufacturing pressure in particular ways, but it's not like Hicks is a bad blitzer either. I think that you still add something to the way that your front operates with Hicks versus Davenport. But yeah, I mean, Davenport played really well in the couple of games that he was healthy. He has been, a huge add when he's been on the field. I don't think you could pick a wrong answer here, but I'd pick Hicks just because I'm not super comfortable with Ivan Pace and coverage still. Yeah, nope, that makes sense. No wrong answer, like you said. I want to make sure we get to this holiday movie draft. So quick rapid fire through these next 2 or 3 topics, 10, 20 seconds each. I asked Ron about it. I brought it up. Did you guys check the Kurt Warner tweet pertaining to Josh Dobbs? Here's the tweet if you missed it. Just watch the Vikings tape. I feel for Josh Dobbs being benched. So important to watch each play and not just see the results. I feel he played well, dropped passes all over. Some things didn't work, and of course missed some, but far from a benching performance in my opinion. So we all know Dobbs didn't get much help. What was the final tally? 7 drops? Was it 6 or 7? 6. Oh, it depends on who you ask.
A lot on what you look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like
is that frustrating?
It's quite a bit.
Yeah. No, I wrote a whole piece on Arif's Substack about it.
Got it. Oh, we'll go check that out.
But it's a really
minimum 6.
Weird stat.
Minimum.
And then I went through all of them and counted them for myself. I said 7, which landed between PFF and Sports Info Solutions. So
fair enough.
Yeah, but PFR said like 2. So
yeah, which is wild.
Really? So all
of
it.
That's crazy.
Okay, we'll call it 6, maybe 7. So tough balls thrown for sure, but hey, hits your hands. You're going to take some heat if you guys don't come down with those more times than not. That's just the way it is. Arif, though, do you agree with Kurt Warner's stance that Dobbs should not have been pulled? And how do you think the offense looks, just real quick here, 10, 20 seconds, with Mullens at the helm? What looks different? What looks better with Nick Mullens?
Dobbs should not be benched for performance reasons, but for offense fit reasons. I think that he played fine. I think that he and Mullens played at about the same level. PFF actually disagrees. I think Dobbs played better. There's an argument for it, right? With the reason I would prefer Mullens is because he knows the offense and the playbook is bigger, and you can run sight adjustments in your routes. You can call multiple plays in the huddle and kill those plays. You don't have to work on your mesh technique on read option, something they haven't been able to do in the offseason. The stuff that Dobbs does really well or stuff that the Vikings have not repped, and the other 10 players on the offense cannot execute to the level that needs to be executed if you want to win playoff football. So Nick Mullens plays the style of football that the Vikings have been practicing. He knows the plays. He knows how those plays need to play out. He knows how to kill plays. He's the guy, and he plays within the rhythm and the timing of the offense. So I think you got to go with him, not because he's the better quarterback, but because, life in the NFL is unfair, and right now it's unfair in his favor.
Yeah, no, well said, Luke. I mean, thoughts on Warner saying Dobbs shouldn't or didn't deserve to be benched? And what are the one or two biggest positives for this offense in KOC rolling with Mullens now instead? Like, what can you confidently say changes for the better this Saturday versus the Bengals?
Yeah, I know Kurt Warner posted a whole breakdown, went through like 20 plays on YouTube. I haven't watched it because I'm working on content about this myself, and I don't want to couch all his observations, so I'll defer until after I've done that. But the only thing I'll say is it doesn't seem like Kurt Warner is considering that the leash was already short. Nick Mullens took practice reps with the first team in the week leading up to the Raiders game, so they were already kind of on a hair trigger there. So the idea that, that game in and of itself was not benchable, while that might be true, he's also coming off the 4 interception thing. And there's context to that might reconcile what O'Connell did and what Kurt Warner is seeing. But yeah, for more on that, I'm going to dive into it a lot deeper and put it on Patreon, talk about it on Locked On and stuff. That's kind of what I'm going to do all day today.
Now, let's say Mullens gets hurt at any point, really, now moving forward. One word answer. Are you team back to Dobbs, or are you banging the table for Jaren Hall so we can collect that bigger sample size of the rookie before we go into the long offseason filled with all this quarterback talk?
I wanted Hall anyways, so I'm there.
You've been banging for Hall, haven't you? Yeah.
Dobbs, I guess.
Dobbs.
I don't feel strongly about it.
Let's fast forward to the offseason now, just for 30 seconds here. What's this whole thing look like for Kirk Cousins now? Like, the messier this gets week after week, does that give all the leverage to Kirk and his agent this offseason? Or are we already at that point? Is this Kirk Cousins' choice if he even wants to come back now? Because I think about how many backup quarterbacks we were talking about have started around the league right now. And I got to think Kirk and his camp hold all the power, all the cards right now this offseason. But that's just my gut feeling. Reef, what do you think?
I don't know that it's going to be about leverage. Like, I'm usually pretty cynical about player team negotiations, and it's all about money and leverage and stuff like that. And that's usually the case. I think here, Kirk wants to be a Viking. The Vikings want Kirk. I don't think that they'll play leverage against each other unless guaranteed money becomes a huge sticking point, which it is Kirk Cousins, so that's always on the table. But I do think that the Vikings do want Kirk. I think that they'll extend him to a short-term deal, maybe a 2-year deal. It's going to be tough because, again, Kirk Cousins wants guaranteed money, and he's also old and injured. And so it's going to be really difficult to be comfortable with guaranteed money, but that's just who he is. And the Vikings have been fairly strongly signaling that. And without, one of the quarterbacks stepping up and just playing well for multiple games in a row, it's really difficult for the Vikings to say, nah, I'd rather stick with Mullens, or nah, I'd rather stick with Dobbs. They can't say that, right? So I think that they'll both just agree to something without either of them bending each other over the barrel. I think that you're probably not going to get the $40 million that Kirk wanted this last offseason, but I don't think you'll be far from it. I think you'll be something like $38 million 2 years, and in Kirk's world, that would be a fully guaranteed 2 years.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Luke?
I think the question will become, how much better can Kirk Cousins do on the open market than he can with the Vikings? Can he do better at all than he can with the Vikings? Because if he can't, then he'll probably be more willing to take a smaller deal with the Vikings to represent the risk that comes with the Achilles injury and age and all that stuff. And that's the sticking point for like 80% of the people that strongly dislike Kirk Cousins, is that he costs too much money, right? So I wonder how perception changes when that happens. Like, I think that affects perception so much, is how much someone makes. Like, I can't wait for a lot of Vikings Twitter to turn on Justin Jefferson.
That's like your deal this year, man, is that you're like, yeah, man, it's because you all care about how much you're all pocket watching. You all care how much you pay players. That's your whole deal this year.
It bugs me to see people turn on. Like, we loved Hawkinson until he got paid.
Oh, you got an ear infection?
That's what it comes down to for me.
But also
what is the market for Cousins outside of Minnesota? And I have no idea. So I have no idea what happens, but I have a feeling that let's roll with Josh Dobbs is no longer on the table.
Brad Spielberger, PFF, contract projections for Vikings top 2024 free agents. Cousins, 2 years, $60 million, $30 million average, 37.5 guaranteed.
Seems reasonable enough, but I think the range is so huge. The margin of error is so huge.
Danielle Hunter, $40 million guaranteed, about $22 million per year. Both seem low, if you want my honest opinion, but
I agree.
He's probably not going to pass his physical in March, so that may hinder him from getting as much as we think. We'll see. I don't know.
Spielberger does phenomenal work, and he's just been given a bunch of tools to improve that work, which is where those contract projections come from. I respect it a lot. It is really difficult to do that kind of work because it is built off of matching player profiles from previous contract environments and then adjusting it for, the salary cap this year. And Cousins is a very unique negotiator. He is just a very unique negotiator. So it's really difficult to use historical examples of other quarterbacks to figure out what Cousins' contract is going to be. And also, I just haven't seen teams give up negotiating leverage like the Vikings have when it comes to Cousins. For the coach to be like, he 100% is coming back. Like, we are going to do everything we can to sign him. Like, okay, well, his price probably goes up.
Right.
So I do think it is a little bit different, and this is not a knock on Spielberger's work. It's just a acknowledgement of how difficult it is to do that kind of work.
No, well said. All right, time to jump into our holiday movie draft right after I remind you about all the good stuff going on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Before I jump into it, guys, quick reminder to follow all the work over on Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, and on Twitter, give us a follow. It's at Locked On MIN. And remember, we're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms, Spotify, Apple, you name it. We got it. Tons of great choices over there. Your one-stop shop with endless Vikings talk with local experts. Ben Beacon talking Wolves on the Locked On Wolves podcast. Of course, our guy Luke Braun talking Vikes every day on the Locked On Vikings podcast. And the Minnesota basketball party every Wednesday with Sam Ekstrom, Reggie Wilson, and Jack Borman. Do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, and drop us a 5-star review. Okay, it's that time, our favorite yearly tradition, the holiday movie draft. Only 3 of us today, so we'll each pick 4 of the movies I've got listed here. Of course, if you want to pick something that's not on the list, you can do so as well. I flipped the coin. Arif, you got the 1-1. I'll go last. I'm putting a 15-second cap on each pick so we can keep this moving. Arif, the 1-1. The floor is yours.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. I was not thinking about this. I've got the 1-1. I'm just going to, It's a Wonderful Life. Jesus.
It's a Wonderful Life. Can't go wrong with that, really. You know you're going to get some votes. And let me switch these over. It's a phenomenal movie. Phenomenal. Luke Braun, you're on the clock.
I'll slam Elf.
It's a good pick.
I wasn't that into Elf, but I know that that's going to be a popular one.
It's going to be, I'm pandering.
That is going to get a lot of votes. I probably would have taken Elf, to be honest. I'm just going to go with 2 that I watch every year with my parents. One with my dad, one with my mom. First of all, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I watch with my dad every year. We could quote the whole thing. So that's my pick. And then coming back with the 4, I watch A Christmas Story with my mom every year. So I'm going to go with The Christmas Story. 2, I think, maybe if you like them, you love them. So hopefully I'll get enough people voting on this that have seen both those movies because they're great. Braun, coming back to people. Yeah.
I'll hit Home Alone. That's another one that I feel like has a lot of.
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. And Reef, you got back-to-back.
Okay, I was so happy. Muppets Christmas Carol survived, so I'm taking that.
So good.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
I was going to take on the way back if it survived.
So good. I was so concerned. So I'll take that. And then, it's actually kind of tough after that. I'm not a huge Christmas movie guy. I don't like the horror Christmas movies, so I'm just giving those up. I'm letting you know that I'm not going to steal those.
I've seen maybe one of them. Yeah.
This is. Let's go with Luke. You spell so many of these things wrong.
I don't think so. Google. I don't know. You ever heard of Google? I don't know.
I'm deciding between 2. I'll go just real quick with my instincts of Charlie Brown Christmas.
Okay, that's solid.
All right.
You can go wrong with that.
A couple of cartoon ones.
Okay.
Yeah. You gotta balance out the black and white classic, right?
Charlie Brown. Go ahead and copy and paste it if you see it. Yeah, go ahead. All right, back to you, Brian. You got Elf and Home Alone.
It's getting hard because I am running out of movies that I'm familiar with because I'm also not a huge Christmas movie guy, but I guess I'll take How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
God, that's a great one.
All right.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's going to get you some votes. I'm going to go with The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. Me and my wife absolutely love that one. I've never seen
classic Luke Inman movie.
I've never seen the second or third. I think they're on like the fifth one. I think Disney did a spinoff. Only seen the original, the OG, but Tim Allen, hilarious in The Santa Claus. And then coming back for my last pick, I'm going to go Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Sinbad, recorded and filmed, by the way, at the Mall of America right here. So that should get some brownie points as well. All right, back to Braun for your last pick. Elf, Home Alone, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I feel like I need one kind of old school classic, so I'll go with A Christmas Carol.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, well done. Yep, okay. And Arif, you've got It's a Wonderful Life, the 1-1, A Muppets Christmas Carol, and A Charlie Brown Christmas. Your final pick here. A lot of options still left.
Focusing on fixing your typos.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That might take a while.
Man. Okay, so I've got two cartoons, so I feel like I can't go in that direction anymore, which is tough because like a lot of the
best ones left are cartoons. Yeah.
Man, actually, so I didn't think I was going to take a sequel, but this sequel does rule. I'm going to take Home Alone 2.
I love it.
Man, I was going to say if Home Alone 2 went undrafted.
It's so good.
Let's get Donald Trump in there.
Yep.
There you go.
Let's make Christmas great again. Let's go.
You know, Herbert Hoover stayed on this floor. The vacuum guy? Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal movie. Well done, gentlemen. As always, that's always a lot of fun. I'll post this up on Twitter. We can see who wins the yearly holiday movie poll award. That's a wrap today, though. Remember, like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every Monday and Thursday for another episode of The Football Party, your one-stop shop breakdown of everything Minnesota Vikings. That's Arif Hassan. He's on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. Check out all his work over at the Wide Left Substack. Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings, over on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. Thanks for tuning in to the Minnesota Football Party, part of the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. We're back tomorrow with the Roundtable. We got Carol Evans' very own Reggie Wilson and Julia Daniels. But until then, I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Signing out.